Hey everyone, it's TTL back with another video for you, and today we're going to take a look at the new and updated NZXT H1. Now obviously this case did receive some bad press for some really good reasons. Last year, issues with the riser cables being faulty and stuff like that. So it looks kind of the same, but they have changed some stuff under the hood as well. This is also the first time that they've let me have one because of COVID and sample restrictions and stuff like that. I hadn't actually seen one before, and I'm kind of glad they did send me one, if I'm completely honest, because it surprised me quite a lot. And I don't have a lot of bad things to say about it, but there are some points that I do want to raise with you to make sure that you're aware of them, so that you can hopefully choose either the parts that you put inside it better, or to help you decide whether this is the sort of thing that you could be using for the kit you have already. But the thing to remember, it is ITX, is very small form factor, and it does come with a power supply and an AIO already built in. So you just need basically a graphics card and the stuff that you'd normally stick on your motherboard. But is it any good? Now I have taken a slightly different approach with this one, in that it's already built as well. But top and front, there you have. Power switch, which has a nice white LED light, a couple of USB 3s and a USB Type-C, and then a headphone and microphone combined, but it does come with an adapter in the box. Now, you can see the magnetic Wi-Fi doofer stuck on the side. Now that is there because of the system that I have built in it. And you can see that we have a glass front, which is removable, which I will do for you now. There we go. So, very tinted glass front. I will say though, that in reality, when you look at it, there's not really a lot there for us to get excited about. It does make me question the need of a glass front. But it is rather tinted. Now, what I would say personally, especially for the white one, as a tip for NZXT, I would probably have made that a mirror. But that's also something you guys at home could do. You can easily buy some mirror window tint film that you could stick over that. You easily get it on eBay. Bit of soap and water in a bottle, squeeze it all out. Nice mirror. The other thing that you could do, because there isn't really anything there, this, I think, is a blank canvas for any type of kind of sticker graffiti, or maybe you want to get a decal made up with your favourite anime character. I mean, you could literally just use that as a blank canvas for whatever you could want. You could go full retard on it. Round the back, there is another removable panel. This one, there is no dust filter or anything going on here. It is meant as an exhaust. You can see the fan up the top here, exhaust. You can see your power supply here. Confusingly for most people, a lot of people seem to think that the power supply, that's where the air goes in. No, it's not. That's where the air comes out. So the air goes in here and then out the back. Now, the other thing that we can do, because it's here, is I think this is one of the best bits about the case, but it takes me a little while to be able, the one side's moved, and now the other side doesn't want to. I need to take the magnet off for the... And it... Oh, right. Bear with. We will get there. There we go. Right, once it starts moving, we are golden, because then we're all right. It is easier to do this on the side, if I'm completely honest. Now, I'll move back when it's on its side, but I'm obviously trying to do it and it stood up. There we go. Right. Now, that is the top, and both sides have all come off. Now both the sides have dust filters in, which are removable, and you can take them off and wash them. Now at this point you can see that I have a fully built system in here. I do just want to cut to this section before I built it. So this is the carnage of the build, but the reason why I've kind of stopped and wanted to talk to you guys and show you a little bit is just how much effort has gone into this before I've even started. So you can see all the cables are actually pre-routed, and it's all really tidy already. Now, it's obviously a very, very small system, and for somebody to be trying to do this at home, it could be incredibly difficult in reality. But like I said, they've routed all the cables in. There's little Velcro ties that have been done to put the cables in already. Just look at it all. It looks messy because nothing's connected, but look at how the cables are all clipped up already. These are all the front panel cables, so these have got to go onto the motherboard at some point. But like I said, look how tidy it all is considering how small it is. Even the AIO has been made to pretty much just there we go, sorry. I was making this look more difficult than it needed to because I'd pulled the hoses out. But so you can actually have it and service it like that, and it just comes out on a hinge. It's actually really nice. Why did they not send me one of these sooner? I guess there were inherent problems, but it's a really, really nice and personally clever design. So yes, I am zoomed right in, but just so to give you a little tip about something I found issues with when I was trying to assemble the case, that when I'll zoom out a little bit, there we go. My screwdrivers were never straight on the screws, which meant when I was first installing them, I was having issues getting the threads to catch properly without cross-threading them because I couldn't get the angle, because really I want to be going straight on with the screwdriver straight over here, and I was having to come in at an angle to miss the bar, and it was getting frustrating. So here's a Tommy tip. Take your normal screwdriver that you can get with the little magnetic end, where you... My magnets come out of one of them. So with your little magnetic end, put one of your extensions in, and then you're going to get some extra height. And then because of the extra height, then that means that you have a much straighter screwdriver, and then that means you can get your thread started to install your motherboard, and that's going to save you much frustration and no cross-threaded screws. So do go careful when you're installing. This is the way I've had to do it, because a normal screwdriver just wouldn't cut it because the handle was in the way and I was always on an angle. So that's how I got around it. Okay, so back to fully built. I'm just going to keep moving the camera in a very unprofessional way because it's me and I'm not professional. Now, one of the things I did want to do is point out I have left a fairly meaty USB stick in the bottom. And if I tip it over now, you'll see that it is still in there. And that's actually my Windows drive. It's a big Voyager from Corsair. Now, I could still leave that in there. You do plug your power supply in the bottom, and then that goes up to the top. But you're going to have enough room in there to be able to put your other bits and bobs. Now, I do have the Wi-Fi dongle on as well. Because of the feet on the bottom of the case, it does still mean that I can still get the cable out and move it around, which is nice to know if you are building it. But another reason why I did want to bring this up is obviously the Asus one has got the cable and then that. But if you have a Wi-Fi dongle that is based on USB or something that sticks straight out of the board, you may run into problems because you're only going to get about 100 millimeters of clearance around the back. It's fine for USBs, Ethernet, audio maybe, and obviously your video inputs, but anything big it might struggle with. So I have said it does have a power supply fitted up in the top corner. You can see it's a little SFX unit. I've already shown you as well that the cables are very well routed, but you didn't see the fact that it is now actually completely built. So we've got our 8-pin here, round the other side. We've got all the connections that go down the side of the motherboard. I did find that the 24-pin was a bit tight, but I did get it all there. I've not had to worry, mod anything. I moved a few cables around, mainly because my USB connector, rather than being like on the normal side of the board where they normally are, it's actually on the riser card on it. And I did think I was going to get some issues because of the riser card. I'm actually using and I need to bring the box out. I am using the Z690i Strix from Asus. Now it is incredibly tight. So the riser card, you can see, is pretty much right there by the fan itself. And I did think that I was going to have problems with the excuse me, with the installation of the AIO, but thankfully I didn't, because it can all just be moved around. Now these screws here are captive, so they don't fall out. This is a master stroke. I love that in itself. Then you've got the hinge for your AIO. Now the hoses for your AIO can be swiveled at the top and at the bottom to make your life easy for getting your top back on. You do need to go careful that you don't squeeze anything or squidge anything together. I've had to push mine all the other way to clear the kind of daughter board or the daughter card where the audio is kept and the NVMe's on the Strix is kept, but it still did go in there. Now the 140mm fan that's on this side here does have a sturdy metal mesh on it as well, so that when everything does go in, it fits in nicely. When I first built it, I was having to lean in and move my 24-pin cable with my finger a little bit because it was fouling to start off with. But now it's been in, done some heat cycles, it all seems to be going fine, and I can get all my hoses in absolutely fine. It's actually a really, really nice touch. When I flip the case back up and we come back round to this side as well, what we can do here is pull this open, and this is your hub for your fan speeds and also so you know what's going on with the AIO. Now the only problem with this is it does mean that you have to use NZXT cam. I haven't ever had anything particularly good to say about the cam software. I have installed it on this rig and I still don't particularly have anything. It's okay, but at the same time it's not brilliant. The cam linking side of it is probably the bit about the case that I dislike the most, sadly. Now, amazingly, even though we have a very small case, because they've been very clever with the cables and everything, there is still room. You can see that I've been able to pull some slack, this is from the USB cable, into the power supply section of the case. Because this moves up and down and you can pop it open, you can get in there and get access to your power supply. I've also put probably the worst graphics card, or one of the worst graphics cards in this system that I possibly could do, and that is because where obviously the NVIDIA ones, they like to pass the air through now, and there is a little bit of room around the back. You've got about maybe 10 millimeters of room behind the graphics card. You can see I can get my finger in there. You can see a bit of light through the back, so there is actually enough room for it to be able to breathe. And that also does mean that this little fan at the top, which is exhausting, does get to move some of the air around. I will say that compared to a normal open-aired ITX case, your graphics card is going to get a bit warmer. But if you look at the amount of room that you could fit for an ITX case, I mean, you can go full whack with this because you've got up to 330 millimeters of room for height or length, whatever you want to call it, you can see there's a lot of extra room for depth. You can also see that because I've used the NVIDIA card, I've had to use the adapter, so you can see there's plenty of room for that. There are also 3 PCI Express 8-pin connectors that come with that power supply. So that would mean that you'd be able to connect up a Supreme X from MSI or something like the Strix with the RTX chip underneath it, because at the end of the day, you're going to have enough power connectors, because each of those graphics cards take 3 power connectors. So with all of that, you can fit big graphics cards in. There's going to be enough room. You're going to be able to get enough power. There is an awful lot that they've thought about with this, and it does work really well, and it shows. Now, beside the power supply, which I've not mentioned, is actually a 750 watt gold power supply. There is, just in here, 2 2.5 inch hard drive bays, and they have little connectors that you can pull out. And just because I want to, I can't get my fingers on them. But anyway, actually, I apologise, they don't pull out. I'm being a doofus. Officer Doofy reporting for duty. They're little, you slide your drive in and then the end clips onto it. You don't actually insert anything in there. I actually kind of like it for, obviously if you've got a hard drive, that's fine. But if you're using NVMe like I have with this, then it's kind of nice just to be able to tuck cables and stuff in there. And that knock would be the fact that I hadn't screwed the AIO back on. So I will do that just quickly with you, and I'm hoping nobody at home had their headphones up really loud and had kittens like I just have, because I had no idea what just fell off. Anyway, so you can see that there's a physical top to the case. Everything else is then open. There's quite a lot of plastic going on down the sides for the runners, but then you have the steel outer on 3 sides and then the glass on the other. Riser cable, very beefy, and it looks like they've paid a lot of attention to this. It's probably one of the better ones I've seen, and the way that the riser cable is all bent around, it looks like they've really done it in a way that they want it to last, because obviously you don't want any more problems again. And it does look all really nice. Have to admit, guys, the layout and what they've done with this, I'm actually really impressed. So then my thoughts on the H1 are, in all honesty, the worst bit about it is the CAM software. They still need to do a lot of work on that. Design-wise, internally, it's amazing the amount that they've crammed in there, and they've made your lives really easy as well. I used a 12600K in this build, and I will say that the cooling on it was okay. You're not going to be doing like lots and lots of like AVX prime runs on this. In gaming, I was consistently with the CPU getting into the early 70s. As soon as you start doing a benchmark like OCCT, even with AVX turned off, it was north of 90 degrees. Doesn't get particularly loud, but at the same time, you do need to remember that because it's small form factor, it's not going to have the same sort of airflow and cooling capabilities that you would have done with a larger, more area case. And you need to remember that there are in total 2 fans in this, and one of them is only 92mm. So it is very small. The 140mm AIO for a gaming setup is going to be ample. I wouldn't necessarily personally be putting a 12900 in this. I think a 12600 is probably a push. I think personally around the sort of 12400 kind of mark. Choose your processor if you're building it as a gaming rig wisely. If it's an office system and it's not going to be doing rendering and such like, you're not going to need a big processor anyway. But if you're down the AMD route, 5600 X is probably as far as I'd go, but I wouldn't even bother with the X because I wouldn't necessarily want to be advising any sort of overclocking. GPU temperatures, because you only have that one fan to kind of remove some of the air, and it's designed that it pulls the air through from the side. With the stock 3070 Ti in this, and you might say, why didn't you use a bigger one, why didn't you use a smaller one? It was just the one that I grabbed hold of because effectively it's a graphics card. I know a lot of people moan that we get to keep graphics cards, but we do use them when new games come out and new stuff comes out, and for stuff like this. So I'm going to use it for a bit to see how things go, and that was the graphics card I could spare for a little while. So that, gaming wise, when it was under load, was sat north of 70 degrees again, which is a little bit more warmer than I'd be expecting with this. But you do need to remember graphics cards can spin their own fans up and stuff to keep within a cooling limit, and the cooling limits on these are technically set at about 80 degrees anyway, so it wasn't excessively bad. And I do think that at the end, if you're going to end up putting something like a massive 3090 or a 3080 in there, then you're not going to be, probably a lot of people aren't necessarily going to be running a Founders for starters, so you're going to have bigger fans and stuff, and you're just going to have to remember it's not being fed lots of cool air from other fans in the case, and it's just having to work at pulling it in itself. And the other thing that you need to remember is where it is quite small, where the hot air comes out this side from your CPU, it's all in quite a small compact space, so you are going to end up getting heat soak. The case itself, like the whole outside on this, got warm when I was running CPU tests on it, just because this bit got hot and then it heat soaked around. So you are going to end up getting a warming nature on it if you end up really, really stressing it. The only other thing that I'm a little bit... is at that point, he goes and checks prices. So I already knew this was going to be $339, which is a lot of money, but you need to remember you do get your power supply and your AIO cooler. Now, the AIO cooler and your power supply could be like 150, 200 pounds worth. So then when you think that the rest of it is, let's say, 130 pounds, that isn't massively expensive, but the fact it's all together so neatly done is kind of the package that you end up paying for. ITX stuff just is more expensive. The other thing to kind of keep in mind as well is close competition for this would be the Cooler Master N200 Max. They have a rival for it, let's say, that has a bigger CPU cooler, but the case itself is bigger all over. So this does keep things very, very compact. It's got an Apple-esque kind of nature to it. You could have this comfortably in a very smart office, nice modern bedroom. Even it wouldn't necessarily look out of place in a front room. But the one thing I will say is the place I think they could have saved some money. I don't know how much it cost, but it is the glass front. I genuinely don't see the point. Glass window should be exactly that, a window, and you can't really see anything inside. So I don't think, compared to the competition, it is overpriced. It is just expensive because you obviously attach the fact you think it's a case, and you just need to remember that you do get all those extra goodies, and they have made your life very easy with cable routing and stuff like that as well. So it's a very yin-yang kind of way to think about it. Also, when I showed you the wire hung out the side, it can easily be hung out of the cutout in the back section, and I forgot to mention that, but it was more the fact I was trying to show that it could still go very easily out the side, but I hadn't mentioned this cutout because this is where your VGA cables and stuff goes in. So yeah, genius, Dom. And I kind of like the fact that you can hide your wireless around the back. But I do really like it. I actually like it more than I thought I would. And I actually think it's quite unfortunate that they had some issues with the original ones. But obviously when you're trying to break the mold and you're trying to do things differently, then you are going to run into issues. And they did sort them out for people as well. So that's something that does need to be remembered. I can't say whether it's going to happen again, but I would suggest that, with all due respect, I don't think they would ever have an issue like that again, because they would have been burnt from it so much, both reputation wise and financially. With the first lot, I would say that this has been tested to within an inch of its life, And I certainly didn't get told, don't put a big graphics card in it, don't do this, don't do that. There was none of that. It's just, there it is, crack on, it's all good. So I would suggest that's the way you should treat it at home as well. And like I said, if anything, because it is a newer version, that is your indicator that there isn't going to be any problems, because they're back and they've, you know, they've learnt their lessons, and now we are here. But I'm leaving this system in it, and you can bet your bottom dollar if there are problems, you'll be hearing about it from me if I get them anyway. So yes, that is my thoughts on the NZXT H1. I wish they called it the H1.2 or something, so it kind of differentiates from the originals, because in reality, they've obviously done a fair bit to try and put things right. Please let me know if you enjoyed the review underneath in the comments. Ask me any questions, I will keep an eye. And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and do all of those things that I always forget to ask you to do. And I do very much enjoy feedback, either good or bad, because if it's constructive criticism, you could actually be doing me a favour. But for now, at least, this is the tiniest one with another video for you out. Ding! Love you, sis.